Christina Jordan here, your board certified master nutritionist here at Fit Body Weight Loss. And today we are going to be discussing how to break bad habits. So many of you know my story. You know that I've lost a lot of weight. I've lost half my body size. I've lost over 134 pounds. However, a lot of you may not know some of the struggles and the intimate details of what I had to walk through to get here today. And let me tell you, it's been a lot of bad habit breaking, a lot. And today I'm going to share some of my real bad habits that I've broken and also my tips that have helped me attack every single bad habit in my life. And these tips, I encourage you to utilize them. I encourage you to use them. Why? Because they work. They work. So the first thing I want to do is break down what is a bad habit. And here's what you need to know. A bad habit in your brain is not distinguished by category. Your brain doesn't know the difference between an addiction to cocaine, as an addiction to alcohol, to smoking, to sugar, to social media, to shopping, to approval of other people, whatever. All these addictions, they are the exact same to your mind inside of your brain as any bad habit. So these tips and what I'm about to share, it's universal. These tips are going to help you break bad habits in every area of your life, But today I'm obviously going to be focusing on nutritional bad habits, habits for a healthier lifestyle, habits based around weight loss and getting healthy, getting more energy, getting stronger. So in my journey, when I began, I was 271 pounds and I had some really bad habits. And what I love about this is if I can break these bad habits in my life, I know for a fact that you can break your bad habits. I mean, it's plain and simple. So I had a really bad habit that I would starve myself all day long. I would eat nothing. I would just live off of Starbucks drinks, literally. I mean, it was so bad, my Starbucks barista knew my name. It's terrible. I didn't even have to order. They would just see me come up and they knew exactly what I wanted. I went to Starbucks 3 times a day. Oh, it's horrible, I know. So I wouldn't eat all day. I would just drink these sugary drinks. Then at home, I would just binge because I'm starving. So I would binge on something really bad. Usually it was something fast food or something really junky like pizza or burgers, french fries, chicken strips. It was just junk food. It was completely dead and lifeless. Here's where the real bad habit comes in. After dinner, as my reward for a job well done, I would go to Sonic and I would order a giant cookies and cream milkshake with a french fry, and I would dip french fries into said milkshake, and I did this for years. And I'm gonna tell you, it was this bad habit that was ingrained into my mind, into my brain, what's called a neurological pathway, okay? And so what people don't realize is that it doesn't take 21 days or 7 days or 40 days to break a habit. It takes, studies show, 66 days to break a bad habit. So in my book that I just wrote, it's called Half My Size. I'm actually finishing it now and we're gonna have it out for 2020. But I share my journey of breaking these bad habits, and today we're gonna talk about some of the tips I share in this book, because I went through 68 days of habit breaking hell. And it's very, very interesting because I journaled every single day of my journey. I did, because I was so afraid that if I fell off track, I needed a blueprint to go back to go, okay, if I do this, this, and this, I can get back on track. I know what I'm doing. It's okay. And also I wanted to be able to look back and recreate this for you guys, which is what I did. So when I wrote my book, I pulled out all my old journals, and it was crazy because I was doing research during that time on breaking habits, which I was doing some research with the UCLA Behavioral Health Center. And they were studying bad habits, and it said that in their studies, they found that it took an average across the board 66 days to break a habit. Well, what's interesting is I went back to my journal and I wrote on day 67, I'm starting to feel free again. I'm starting to feel free for the first time in my life from these food addictions. And on day 68, I wrote, I'm set free. And that's exactly how this tattoo ended up on my arm. It says set free. Because on day 68, I felt set free. I felt like I had no more bad habits. I felt like, well, at least with food, I felt like my addiction to the food, of food controlling me, of being this monstrous voice in the back of my head that made me feel so really just controlled and imprisoned, was gone. 68, day 68, so apparently I'm slow. Because UCLA, their research says it takes 66 days to break a bad habit. I took 68 days. I'm a little slow, but on average. So that means you. So for people that read these books or see these articles that say 21 days to break a bad habit, 21 days, it's a myth, it's a lie, it's false, it's not real, it's a mirage, and it's creating false expectations. So, and here's how I know this to be true, because if 21 days were real, then everyone who set a goal on January 1st to get healthy, to stop drinking the alcohol, to start exercising, to change their life, they would have been transformed by day 21 and they would have stuck with it. But is that the case? No, it's not. It's not the case. In fact, most people by day 21, they're done, they quit. They're like, I'm out of here. Or they'll restart over day 21, you know what I mean? And it's just not the case. So the next time you start a journey and you think, what is wrong with me? I've been doing this 21 days and I still feel like I want sugar. I still feel like I want alcohol. I still feel like I want carbs, or I want junk food, or whatever. And you think something's wrong with me. And then what happens? It sets you up to think that you're a failure. And so what do? Well, you fail, you quit on yourself before you even give yourself a chance. So as I share this because I want you to know that it's not 21 days. I wish it was 21 days. I wish our brain could heal neurological pathways in 21 days, but it can't. So what I want to do is I want to explain. Number one, bad habits are universal. In the brain, your bad habits look exactly alike, whether your brain doesn't know a difference between being addicted to sugar and addicted to cocaine, addicted to heroin or addicted to wine, addicted to drugs or addicted to any other thing out there, shopping, social media, approval addiction, procrastination, that's a habit too, you guys, carbohydrates. Whatever. You guys listen, they are all the same in the brain. They're all the same. So neurological pathways, what they are is they are ruts or rivets that are in the brain. And think of it like this way. When I was a little kid, I grew up on a dirt road. And that dirt road is still there. My parents still live in the same house that from when I was a little kid. And when it would rain, which was rare in Arizona, but it would sometimes, we would get, especially during monsoon season, we would get these deep rivets. And I liked to ride my bike on the street and down this dirt road, because at the end of the dirt road was a really cool desert land where I could go and ride it in the hills and pop wheelies and all that. So literally, when I would ride down the road and cars would drive down during the rain, we'd get these rivets. And I'm riding, right? But then I'd hit a rivet, and what happens? It pulls your bike, right? It pulls you one way. I did not want to go that way, but the rivet pulled me that way. And see, in your brain, when you develop a bad habit, you get these neurological pathways that pull you in a direction you didn't want to go. And let me explain this. So let's say that you are making a commitment and you are saying, I'm going to transform my life and I'm going to lose the baby weight. My kid's 18 now, it's time, right? My oldest is 16, right? So I get it, moms, I get it. And it's time to lose the weight. I'm getting healthy, right? So you say, I am no longer going to drink soda, or I'm no longer going to go to Starbucks and get these 1,500 calorie frappuccinos. I'm done, right? So you go and you start to make this transition, and it's only been one day or 4 hours, and you want one really bad because this is the normal time when you would have gotten that Frappuccino, or you would have had that soda or whatever, or that bag of chips in the break room, okay? And so even though you don't want it, mentally, you're like, I don't want it. I know in my heart it's bad for me. I know in my brain it's bad for me. I don't want it. But guess what? Your brain has neurological pathways. I didn't want to go this way on my bike, but the rivets in the road pulled me that way. And that is what happens with your habits in your mind. You don't want to go that way. You don't want it. But guess what? Your mind hasn't healed its neurological pathways. It has these rivets in which your thought process connects, and you create these pathways. And so you go that way. It doesn't mean you have to act on it, but it means that your brain does want it, and you're going to have to pull back and control yourself. And it's not going to be easy, because it's pulling that way. So the first thing I want to say is that don't feel like there's something wrong with you because it's hard to break a habit. It's going to be difficult. I cried over French bread. I remember I wanted this garlic French bread so bad. I was in my first week of making a transition. By the way, I found out in my journey I have an allergen to gluten. So not only did I not need to eat the bread, I needed to not eat that bread because I needed to lose weight radically and very bad. Number 2, I had diabetes, and that would spike my insulin. Number 3, I'm allergic to it. It would literally give me hives, bloating, swelling, make me dizzy, give me flu-like symptoms. But my habits did not freaking care. It wanted it like a drug. Remember, your brain doesn't know the difference between a habit to cocaine and a habit to sugar, a habit to meth and a habit to alcohol. It doesn't know. All habits are the same to the brain. So don't discredit yourself and say like, oh, it's just sugar. What's wrong with me? I should be able to beat this. My friend beat it. Don't do that to yourself. Give yourself grace and understanding that a habit is a habit is a habit, and you're gonna have to fight for it. So I cried at the dinner table over this French bread. I did, I literally cried. So I'm a nutritionist, you guys, and when I was breaking bad habits, it was just as hard for me. A lot of fighting. So tip number one, if you're taking notes, and I really hope you are, because this is to help you, I want you to realize you gotta put those fighting gloves on. So number 1, write it down, put your fighting gloves on. This is going to be a fight. It doesn't mean you can't win. Let me tell you, anything worth having requires energy, output, and a fight. Anything. If you're a mom, if you're a parent, whether you're the father or the mother, you know that there was a battle to go through to get that beautiful baby. Anything worth having requires you to put on your fighting gloves and to go for it. You have to be tenacious, because like I said, your mind is going to want to pull you and steer you in an area in which you shouldn't be going. Just like when I was riding my bike as that little girl and the rivets in the road tried to pull me certain ways, neurological pathways have to heal. So like I was mentioning earlier, how long are you going to have to fight? About 66 days. The average time, according to UCLA Behavioral Health, is it takes 66 days of beating, fighting, going through, walking through it, and being very, very mindful for 66 days. I'm a late bloomer. I was a little slow. I was 68 days. So be prepared for 66 days on average. It took me a little longer. And so when you're going through this, you have to be willing to be tenacious. You have to be willing to give yourself grace and to know that maybe you shouldn't put yourself in areas where you're going to be tempted. When I was going through my journey, I was leading a table of women in a women's group every single Wednesday, and it was hard because these women, I love them, God love them, but they would bring the worst foods ever for temptation. Pies, cakes, pasta, not a single vegetable in sight. It was all sugar. It was all just make me feel good, not make me look good food. And it was all sugar, all addictive foods. And so what I had to do is during those 68 days, I had to eat beforehand. I had to bring my own food. I had to have a pep talk with myself before I went in there. I would literally sit in my car before I walked in. I'd pull down the mirror and I would say, Christina, You are not touching that food. You know that is not for you. You know logically, you know that is not good for you. You've got to overcome these diabetes. You got to get your blood sugar in order. You got to lose this weight, girl. You got to get control because you're the boss. And I would remind myself, I have come too far to be told what to do by a cookie, by a cupcake, by a bowl of pasta, by chips, by whatever, right? And so I would have to really be vigilant and on guard when I went in there. And then what's great, like I said, I'm not saying you can't have it. Now, I've been doing this over 10 years. I've lost the weight. I've lost over 134 pounds. I reversed type 2 diabetes. I overcame my thyroid condition. I'm off of all medications. And yes, I can have a cookie now. I had one not too long ago. And you know what? It wasn't the same effect it would have had in the first 68 days of my journey. I was very tender during those first 68 days. I could easily have reverted back. Easily. I was so new. And so that takes me to tip number 2. And that is, you cannot have just a bite. Don't do it. Don't do it. So whenever you're in this journey, you are so volatile. You're so up and down in the first 66, 68 days. So to go back and say, for example, let's say you want to get off sugar and you're at a party and someone says, hey, you want a piece of cake? No, not right now. Thank you though, I'm good, thank you. Why? Because what's gonna happen is that's gonna spike your insulin. That insulin spike is gonna create a natural food high. Literally, your brain is gonna get the same chemical high as it would if you went and did cocaine or meth or whatever, or drugs, drinking, you name it. You're gonna get the same high from that cookie that you do from cocaine. Your brain doesn't know the difference. Remember, my friends, your brain doesn't know a chemical difference between drugs, food, whatever your addiction is. When you feed the addiction, because that's what you're doing, you just fed your addiction, you were in this process of breaking it and you went back and fed it, you get this high. And now your brain has to go through the process of trying to bring down the chemicals, bring down the insulin to stabilize out, to feel level again. And guess what? It hurts. It hurts. It literally physically hurts. It's a physical process that your body will go through. And so when you do that, your brain just says, let's just stay up. Let's just do it again. So you do it again. And by the 3rd time, you've recreated the brand new habit. UCLA, again, I'm referencing to them because I did some work with them a couple years ago. UCLA, the Behavioral Research Center, says it only takes 3 exposures during your habit breaking session, during those 66 days, or in my case, I'm a late bloomer, 68 days, to break this bad habit. Only 3 consecutive exposures to break all progress lost and revert back. That means, my friend, you just started over. You could have been saying, I am no longer touching soda, I'm no longer drinking. I have a friend, she's trying to break alcohol addiction right now. And she'd been doing so good. She went to an event, she drank a glass of wine, drank another glass of wine, drank another glass of wine. She's starting over now. All the progress that she's been doing, because she's only about 32 days in, back to 1. So now she's gonna have to go another 68 days. Because like I said, your brain, it's not you, it's the rivets, it's the neurological pathways in your brain that need time to heal. And when it's kind of like you cut your arm, okay? It has to heal. But if you go back and you scrape it before it's fully healed, what happens? You reopen the wound. Your mind has to heal. The neurological pathways have to heal. And that's why I suggest wait. It doesn't mean you can't ever have it again. Trust me, you can have it. Wait till you're past your 66 to 68 days, then reintroduce it one time and see how you do. You have to be in control, because what happens if you try to start treating during your habit breaking session, you're going to reopen the wound. You're going to reset that pathway. You're going to reinforce it. And that's why I highly suggest that don't even pick an area, pick one thing you want to break. And that's what I want you to do right now. I want you to picture in your mind one area. And don't tell me you don't have an area to break, because we all have areas. You never arrive. And if the day I tell you guys, I'm perfect, I've arrived, I have no bad habits, I want you to send me a message and say, you are lying, girlfriend, because we always have work to do. So I want you to imagine that one area in your life that you need to break. And I'm going to give you my example. So my area was I needed to break a diet soda addiction. And whenever I did this, I knew in my mind, I knew logically it was bad. I knew it caused tumors. I knew it actually ate down bone marrow. I knew that it caused acid and inflammation in the blood. I knew that it was possibly causing my knees to swell. I knew it was bad for my body, bad for my skin, bad, bad, bad. But I still wanted it because I had this neurological pathway. I loved everything about it. I was addicted to the sound of the can opening, that psh. I was addicted to the bubbles in my mouth and the way it kind of burned going down. But I knew it was bad. So I made a commitment to break this soda addiction, this diet soda addiction. And the first thing I talk about is I was prepared for the fight. I knew that it was going to require my real deal, tenacious commitment. Number two is I knew that I couldn't even have a sip. If I had a sip, I was going to be like a shark that got a taste for blood and I was going to want more. Now, the next tip, number three, is what I'm about to tell you. You cannot remove an addiction. You can't remove an addiction. You replace it. You replace it. So I knew in my journey that I couldn't just say, I no longer drink diet soda. And that was that. And I had to find some great replacements for it. So what I did is I started finding some delicious carbonated waters that I liked. And you better believe I tried all kinds. I started making infused waters. I started making iced herbal teas. I had to have a whole bar of opportunities for me, of different beverages for me to try, because I had to have options. And then I found what worked for me. Also, I found an organic, it's basically a carbonated water through Zevia. It was great. I found that at Sprouts. That's just a little endorsement over there. They didn't pay me. They didn't ask me to share. I just want you to know I had to find options. So I found different carbonated waters. I found different iced teas, infused waters. I was trying all kinds of things because you have to know, my friend, you cannot remove it. Meaning you can't say, I give up sugar and then expect to just eat leaves. It's not gonna work. You have to find healthy replacements. So real life story. I told you I was gonna share some of my own addictions that I broke. So you heard about the diet soda. Now let me share with you probably my most embarrassing and worst addiction I've ever had in my life. So when I was at my heaviest, for a couple of years, I was doing something just horrible. Every single night after dinner, I would, the kids are bathed, they're fed, I've worked all day, I needed a reward. So every single night, my husband and I would drive to Sonic, and we did this for years, and I would get a large cookies and cream milkshake, and I would buy a side of fries, and I would dip said fries into this milkshake, and I would eat it every single freaking night. I mean, you don't have to be a nutritionist to know that that's terrible. You could be 5 years old and know that that's bad. And so when I said I have to break this addiction, I couldn't just say, okay, I'm no longer going to Sonic. I'm no longer drinking this. I'm no longer doing this to my body. I had to find a replacement, something to do. So I had to look at why I liked it. Number one, I liked Sonic. I liked going and getting my milkshake because it got me out of the house. It was a transition. It was the transition from busy workday to personal time, me time, relax time, fun time, chill time, right? So what we started doing is instead of leaving the house to go to a fast food restaurant, I put my kids in the jogging stroller, I strapped them in, and we started walking the neighborhood. Now, mind you, I'm 271 pounds. I had diabetes. I had a thyroid disorder. I felt like I was always tired, always exhausted, so this took a lot of effort. It was a lot harder to walk the neighborhood than it was to sit in my car and drive to a fast food restaurant. So it took the fight, right? I had to fight for it, but I also had to have a replacement. Eventually, I became so addicted to those walks. I didn't care if it was raining. I'm like, put on a poncho, kids, we're going out. I loved it. And literally, I enjoyed those walks so much, and it was a positive replacement for getting out. Also, I liked the milkshake. And as I dug into why I loved milkshakes, I realized that as a little girl, my favorite times growing up was times with my grandma and my grandpa. And I would spend every weekend until I was 16, you guys, with my grandparents. I would choose to go to their house over friend's house any day. I loved it. I loved being with my grandparents. And so every weekend night, my grandma would make, she had this special milkshake glass. It was pink. It looked like the old-timey milkshakes glasses. In fact, it was an old-timey milkshake glass. And she would make me a vanilla milkshake every single weekend. Me and my grandpa, we would all have one. She didn't have one. She was very health conscious, but she made her granddaughter and her husband one, you know. So my grandpa and I would have this milkshake, and we would drink it, and we would sit out by the lake, and we would look at the sunset, and we'd see the ducks, and it was just so relaxing. And what's funny is, as an adult, I didn't realize I was recreating that in my way. And so what I did is, rather than just say, oh, Christina's not having milkshakes anymore, I went and I asked my grandma if I could have that glass. She gave me the glass, and I started making milkshakes, healthy ones, protein style. So I started doing protein shakes, ice blended protein shakes in my milkshake glass after my walk. And you know what? I did that for years. And that gave me that wind down, that getaway, the transition, my milkshake. It gave me everything I needed, because you cannot remove a bad habit. A habit that has been so deeply ingrained in me since I was a little girl, you know, child, baby, 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, all the way till, you know, an adult. So what I did is I replaced it. I created a new habit, a new healthy habit to replace that bad habit. And you know what's interesting, if I look back to when I was a little girl, and I think to why I loved going to my grandma's house, is my grandma, we would go for a walk around her lake and then come back and she'd make milkshakes. Isn't it crazy how, and I'm just now putting that together, literally, I forgot about that, how as an adult, I wanted that walk. I needed that transition and then come back and have that. And it's funny, because today, you know, it's been over 10 years since I've broken that bad habit. I still love walks after dinner. I still love to create a healthy option after dinner that's for the whole family. We usually do fruit bowls with coconut whipped cream that's all organic, all natural, because I like that time together as a family. So my friend, think of that bad habit that you need to break, whether it's sugar or alcohol or social media. Maybe you're addicted to social media. I was addicted to social media too, and I had to replace it. So rather than going on and looking at everybody else, I started reading. I started reading because what I realized is I enjoyed watching everybody else. It was mindless, right? It just let me just zone out. So I replaced mine with reading for pleasure. I found some great books, total fantasy, like magical books. I've read every single Twilight, every single Harry Potter. I've read a whole other series called the Mercy Thompson novels. I mean, I started reading, and that helped me basically unwind and relax. And I drink it with a nice hot tea, you know, a little cup of hot tea, and I read my book, and it's so relaxing. Or maybe you have a really bad habit of Netflix. Maybe you can't stop watching TV. Replace it with something better. In fact, studies show that when you watch TV or you're on social media, if it's not something engaging like this where you're actually learning and interacting, it actually uses no brain power. Very little, very, very little. I think it's at 3%. I'd have to check on that, but it's very, very low. And when you're reading or whenever you're doing a craft like art, I love to paint. Why haven't I painted in years? It's time to get back. And the same for you. You have hobbies, old things that you love to do that could be so much better. Even going for a walk, replacing bad habits with just a simple 10-minute walk, or walking, getting out and just watching the sunset, or having a cup of hot tea instead of something sugary, or having a bubbly, you know, carbonated water with some fruit squeezed into it instead of a soda. You have to replace it. You can't remove it. You replace it. And then once you've done that long enough, yes, you can go back and treat. Not cheat, treat. Treating means you are in control and you choose what you have. Cheating is out of control and it's controlling you. And so, my friends, those are the tips that I have for you, the tips for breaking these bad habits. And again, just to kind of review, number one is remember that all bad habits are the same in the brain. It's a neurological pathway that has to heal. To heal, you need anywhere from 66, or if you're slower in my case, 68 days to heal. Number two is remember all bad habits are viewed the same way, whether it's soda, alcohol, drugs, sex, shopping, social media, approval, whatever, procrastination, you name it, all bad habits are the same in the brain. Okay, so treat yourself, give yourself grace. Even if you think, oh, it's just sugar, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. Have grace, have understanding that it takes time and you have to give yourself that time. Number three, remember just 3 exposures to the bad habit again during your habit breaking session makes it to where you have to start all over in your neurological pathway healing, okay? And that's according not to my studies, but to UCLA Behavioral Health Research Center. They're the ones that posted that. They're the ones that shared that, and I absolutely believe it. I believe it as a master nutritionist, not just as someone who helps people in this capacity, but someone who's walked through it. I believe it. I've seen it in my own journey. I've seen it in my own, even in my own journals. It's absolutely true. Okay, number two is you have to be willing to, or number three, I'm sorry, I'm off on my numbers. You have to be willing to fight for it. Fight for it. Put on your fighting gloves. Be willing to fight, because you have to know that in those 66 to 68 days, it is going to be tough. Your brain hasn't fully healed yet. But the cool part is the longer you go, the easier it gets, because your neurological pathway, like those rivets in the road, right, will begin to heal up. It's awesome. So stick with it. It's not 21 days. Remember that. It is not 21 days. It's 66 days minimum. And I was a late bloomer. I was a little slow. So for me, it was 68 days. And then you have to be willing to realize that you have to keep going. You have to replace, not remove a bad habit. So there you go, you guys. I hope this helped you. If this did help you, please tag a friend below. Tell them, watch this. This will help you. If you really, really loved it, share it. Definitely share it. And also be sure to join my free healthy recipe club online at fitbodyweightloss.com, and make sure you're following all my social media channels, which is Fit Body Weight Loss on Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, Twitter, and of course Facebook. So you guys make sure you stay connected. This is how we stay connected. And I'm so thankful for this, because without social media, we wouldn't be able to have these awesome conversations like we do. So make sure you're connected, stay informed, and also join that free healthy recipe club, because we do send out a healthy recipe every single week, which again, replace a bad habit with a new habit. So trying new recipes is a great way to replace bad food habits. Just trying new things. And so I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I know you'll love it. And be sure to tune in next Monday, 12:30 p.m. I'll be going live again. We're going to talk about a new subject. So be sure and join me every single Monday for Motivational Monday. Have a beautiful day, and I will talk to you later, everyone. Bye.